All right, now let's take you here for the latest on the G20. We cross now to our correspondent, Neha Poonia, who is in New Delhi. Neha, thank you so much for your time. Hope you can hear me now. But of course, we know that this meeting has been dominated by the Ukraine-Russia invasion. Talk to us about what are some of the leaders saying?
That's right. And in fact, this was something that India didn't want. It wanted the focus very much to be on issues that are plaguing members of the global south, things like the energy crisis, the food crisis, and the fuel price crisis as well. But you had the Indian foreign minister addressed the press a short while ago where he admitted that while there was consensus on a lot of these issues, a joint statement from this particular summit was not possible because there was no consensus on the issue of the Ukrainian war. We've also seen how you had the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who held a brief meeting with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov at the sidelines of this summit. It was an unexpected meeting, an unplanned meeting. Russian media saying that there were no negotiations that happened. It was just a brief interaction between the two leaders, but it's significant because it's the first time the two leaders have come face to face since that war in Ukraine started. We have seen how Russia and the US have traded charges all through today and in the run-up to the summit as well. You had Blinken blaming Russia for derailing this meeting, saying its war is sidetracking efforts to build consensus on issues of global importance. Similarly, you had Sergei Lavrov, who said that it was the West's emotional approach towards Ukraine that prevented this meeting from being a success. But this was a huge disappointment for India. In the run-up to the summit, a lot was being said about the role that India could play, the role of a mediator given its engagement with the West and its historic ties with Moscow. But clearly that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to bring these warring factions to the same room, to the negotiating table, because given how things have escalated in Ukraine, it's impossible, experts are saying, to have any sort of constructive negotiation or dialogue at a multilateral forum like this.
And in fact, I'm reading a statement here where it says analysts are saying that it is going to be quite a test, for India from a diplomacy point of view to try and steer those conversations. I mean, they even had to admit that, Russia at some point did not want to sign a joint statement that it would have made, following these proceedings. How then does it pan to bring those important, pertinent, positions that you have mentioned now for the global south in terms of, energy crisis and the food crisis that they're currently experiencing?
It's certainly going to be a challenge. And, before this summit took place, we saw another meeting of G20 finance ministers over this weekend in the southern Indian city of Bangalore, where similarly there was no joint communique. A chair's statement was released instead. Similarly, because of sticking points over the Ukraine crisis, the West insistent that Russia be condemned for its invasion, whereas Russia and China have formed a bloc saying that they don't want to sign any document that raises the war at all. This could mar India's geopolitical ambitions as well, because it's repeatedly said that it views its year-long G20 presidency as not just India's moment in the sun, but the global South's moment in the sun. It says it wants to be the voice for developing nations who are struggling because of the ravages of conflicts the West is engaged in. So that position, India says, remains pertinent. It remains its priority. In fact, India's foreign minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, said that India repeatedly tried to steer the conversation back to issues that impact developing nations, where it's a do-or-die situation for many countries who are struggling because of the fuel and food shortages that have plagued many countries, including in Africa as well. But he said that while there was consensus on that, it's impossible, given how much the conflict has escalated in Ukraine, to agree to a joint statement. But India's efforts to try and build consensus, he says, will continue. But the real challenge is going to be the September Leaders Summit that India is hosting, we'll see heads of state of this bloc coming to New Delhi, where Prime Minister Modi is going to be hosting them. And many experts say that, the challenges that India has faced today will only amplify with time.
All right, Neha, let's leave it there for now. Of course, Neha Poonia coming to us there live from New Delhi, and of course that G20 summit, or meeting rather, is plagued and dominated by the Ukraine-Russia invasion.